Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Pacific Horseplayers right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I am your host, Noah Meagher, usually joined by my co-host, Ryan Anderson, but this week is crossover week, so I will be joined by two of the co-hosts within our podcast family. I'll bring them on shortly to talk about Fairgrounds and the Gunrunner Stakes. We've got the Gunrunner Stakes, which of course is a Derby prep. I believe it's 10 points, so we'll be talking about that as well as 4 other stakes on the card at Fairgrounds on Saturday. Before we do that, and before I bring them on, let's go through some admin real quick. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Power Picks Tip Sheet is still going. Gonna try to get that going for the year. I think that's been running for almost 4 years now, so been doing that for a while and been having good success with that. You can find that information and more information about us on our website, hhhracingpodcast.com, which is actually authored by one of the gentlemen that I'll be bringing on. So to help me out with the Fairgrounds card on Saturday, please welcome from the state of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco, and from Jersey, Mr. Patrick Kuenzel. Boys, how are we doing tonight?
What's up, Noah? How's it going, man? Thank you for having us.
Good, yeah. I'm glad to have both of you on to
minute. So I'll take it in the December winter time. So
yeah, no, I'll be out there pretty soon here, but
awesome.
Hopefully we can get a good show started because we got the crossover week. So I think we should make it a thing, to try to start it off with a bang. If we can come out with a really nice show, I don't think the other boys will be able to catch us if you know what I'm saying.
It's all downhill from here. This is the peak. Anyone watching, this is as good as it's going to get.
Let's go ahead and get it started. First race that we're going to be talking about is actually the Gunrunner Stakes, which is, I guess, the feature on the card on Saturday. It's race 7, $100,000 stake. I believe all 5 are $100,000. A little bit of a disappointing short field of 5, but some pretty decent horses I think we could see in here. Morning line favorite goes all the way to the outside. The 5, Admiral Dennis for Luis Saez and Brad Cox. Second choice, 3, Magnitude for Jose Ortiz and Asmussen. And then the 1, Built is the third choice at 7-2 for Lannery and Catalano. I'll go ahead and bring up the picks right now. We're all going with the 5. I'm going 5-1-2. Pete's going 5-1-3. Patrick 5-3-2. Pete, I'll start it with you. This is a horse that looks to be maybe a force to be reckoned with and seems to be pretty impressive, at least his last start.
Yeah, he looks pretty good. Like you said, it's a quality field for such a short one. But I mean, with Brad Cox up, who's been on fire, not from the win end so far at Fairgrounds, but he's still hitting the board a bunch. But this horse I remember I had some notes from we might have did his prior race, but I had some notes that the debut, I didn't really like the ride very much, and I didn't think the trip was all that great. So I thought that was a nice playback, which wasn't saying much. The horse was 3-5.
Yeah.
And then in the second one, just looked so much better, sitting off a relatively slow pace, stalked beautifully, sort of drew away pretty convincingly. Gets Saez back up again, who should be aggressive enough. And again, it's a small field, so it's not like the trip's going to usually get you. So I think could be aggressive, work that real nice stalking trip. I did like just when the horse stretched from 6.5 to a mile, you see the improvement from a buyer, from a time form standpoint, from a result standpoint, and just looking at the breeding constitution, Union Rags, you figure the extra distance is going to be probably right up his alley. And then you look at that work 2 back, he looks like he's in form. So pretty much everything systems go, which is why he's sitting at 9-5, and we all picked him. So,
yeah, Pat, it seems like Brad Cox pretty much had the intention in mind to ship to Fairgrounds right after, because he had that race on November 7th, then shipped him down to Louisiana. He's got 3 solid works in there since, so it just seems to be looking forward. Anything you got to add, and that stat I've got at the top right is pretty convincing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's funny you bring that up because I looked up a stat. I'm not sure if that's last 5 years. I have the same exact stat as you. That when I saw that one, instantly I put this horse on top, just to bounce off of what Pete said. Just echoing. I think the outside draw he should appreciate here too, considering last time he did that as well. So the only other thing I would have to say is maybe this horse is just going to take another step forward, and the aspirations is I know. The boss is in the chat saying this could be a future Derby bet. I feel like the odds we're going to get on this horse after this race could be even lower.
Yeah, no, it definitely could be. He could come back with a pretty solid effort. And like you say, Pete, it just seems like he's getting better with distance. So wouldn't shock me at all if he got the job done and did it in impressive fashion. Pat, we'll go to you next. You've got the second choice on the morning line, the 3 in second. Again, like I said, for Ortiz and Asmussen. Has 4 starts and 2 wins and got the job done. Close to the lead last time as the favorite.
Yeah, Asmussen's put this horse, obviously with the connections all involved, you would see them trying to get a horse on the Derby trail. So he has put this horse in spots to start that path. Listen, I think this horse, if it can get to the lead, is going to be dangerous. But I'm just not sure how good of a field that was last out. Asmussen did win this race last year with a horse that we'll be talking about a couple races in Track Phantom. So I think that horse, this horse could be a little bit dangerous. But I do think is a cut below the 5 Admiral Dennis.
Yeah, what'd you think, Pete? Because I thought similarly. I didn't know exactly what he beat last time, and the 80 was maybe just a little inflated for me, but certainly can get the job done.
Yeah, he was a tough one because the Iroquois, if you look at the Iroquois too, it didn't necessarily come back so strong in the few next races out. It wasn't exactly you see there, yeah. And Jonathan's Way was sort of disappointing last out, and the rest of the field hasn't done anything super exciting. So this was just a hard one to figure. But again, I think the trip, and I like the pickup of Ortiz, who's been on fire here at Fairgrounds. So just that enough might be where, again, it's a 5-horse field. It could be Trip that gets somebody, but it's, I think this horse will be sitting first or second. And we'll talk about the 1 in a minute, but I think should be sitting right there. And I just hard to know if he's good enough or not. And I guess that's what we'll figure out here. But again, the breeding says the distance, any little bit of added distance might be actually beneficial to that horse.
Yeah, if you guys remember correctly, Built is a horse that's kind of got a soft spot in my heart. Actually, one of my professors owns a piece of this horse through Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. Oh. I got to meet with him when he ran at Keeneland. I believe I made him. I don't know if it was my best bet or play of the day when I did the Keeneland Power Picks that day, but got the job done at 2-1. Showed a lot more speed that day at 7 furlongs than he did last time in the debut when he got crushed by East Avenue, which pretty much everybody did in that race. But it was it's going to be interesting to see what the tactics are because they've got as I showed the time form again, they've got the 1 and the 3 kind of heads up with each other. But I believe I saw Bilt's last work and they did work him in behind, so I have a feeling Flannery's probably just going to let the 3 go and sit second, even though he's got a higher time form early. So I assume he's hitting second. And I think he's got a shot based off of he can kind of dictate what he wants to. If Jose doesn't want to press with the 3, Bill can kind of go and show his early speed. And then if the 3 wants to go, he can sit and maybe get the first jump on the 5, was just kind of my thought from a pace scenario, just because we only got 5 horses. So there's kind of it's very jockey dependent.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was curious because my thought was, okay, if you follow the time form, is it going to be the 1 and the 3 sort of you knocking heads a little bit? Most likely not. I mean, you don't need to do that necessarily in this field, but stranger things have happened. I think this horse is quality though, and again, you're going to get a nice trip. I mean, from the rail, I'm not a huge Lannery guy, so I would lean. I like Admiral Dennis obviously a lot more than any of the other horses. So to me, was this horse going to get the trip if you're playing like a Cold Exacto or something? Do you like this one to get the trip, or do you like maybe the 3 to get to the lead and then get run down? That's the way I look at this race more than anything else.
Funny you mentioned that because I'll touch on that later on as we
nice.
We get to our best bets. Pat, the last horse we'll mention is the 2 Render Judgment, who we both have in third. Was second to Built in the debut. And then last time was coming out of the Jockey Club race where it just kind of seemed like everybody just kind of ran around the track.
Yeah, I really liked Render Judgment's maiden victory. That's kind of what I was going off of, tossing the Jockey Club there. It was 2-1 that day and just, kind of grinded to victory, kind of stalked the pace a little bit and found a way. And I thought that was impressive. And, with McPeak, he seems to prolong his, progress horses in a way, to build them up, to the bigger races. So I think this horse could be sitting on a good one. It could be a sneaky, underneath play with the 5, Admiral Dennis.
Yeah,
hey, friend of the podcast, Kenneth McPeak now. So
yeah,
we always got to root for all his horses now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we're now his insiders, right?
Yeah. By the way, obviously the 4 Chris's Revenge wins because that's the only horse we talk about. So that's obvious. Everybody in the chat just banged the 4. That's the obvious winner. A little Brittany Russell from Maryland here. So that's the winner most likely.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll move on to race 8, but I'm going 5-1-2. Pete's going 5-1-3, and Patrick's going 5-3-2. As I get the Equibase pulled up again. Moving on to race 8. Race 8 is a 5.5 furlongs on the turf. It is the Richard R. Scherer Stakes Memorial. 5.5 furlongs, like I said. Got a field of 9. Morning line favorite goes to the 7 one-timer for E.T. Baird and Larry Ravelli. Second choice is the 6 Minnesota Ready for Declan Cannon and Tom Amos. I'll go ahead and switch this over. I'm going 3-1-7. Pete's going 7-9-1, and Patrick's also going with a 7. He's going 7-4-2. Patrick, we'll go to you this time. Going with the favorite one-timer in a race, which we talked about earlier, does not have a lot of speed for being a 5.5 furlong turf race.
Yeah, full disclosure, I had to text the guys this morning to see if their time form said, no speed on it, because I didn't really see that before. And I was just wondering if that was a mistake on my end. And yeah, the speed here seems to be minimal. One timer comes off the race at Turfway, which was last week. And, lost to Howard Wolowitz. And, I'm not really sure what really happened with one timer. Just didn't really run too well. And I'm not sure if, speed wasn't holding up that day or what was going on at Turfway. But I think one timer should sit a nice trip in here for Larry Ravelli, who is on fire at Fairgrounds. And, I'm not sure if somebody could say if, he's known for being that good at Fairgrounds. But when I saw some of those stats, it was pretty good. So, yeah, I'm chalking out here in a race that, could end up being wide open as, the horses that I have underneath are a bit of longer shots. But I think the 7 should be tough.
Yeah, Pete, I'll throw it to you because you got him on top as well. It seems like if he runs what he's capable of, he's got certainly a chance. We've all got him in the mix. You guys got him on top. I got him in third. The only reason I really have him in third is because he ran, 3 days ago? So, off of that short of a layoff, even though Ravelli is just firing on all cylinders right now, it's still a tough thing to do.
Yeah, and you see Howard mentioning in the chat about whether he'll run or not, and again, it's hard to know. Obviously, if the horse scratches, the horse scratches. I left him in on the picks just because I agree with you. I think just from a class standpoint, and to Patrick's point, I think a trip standpoint potentially. I actually had this horse on top. We did that card on last week's Picks and Ponies. I had this horse on top there, and he was a little disappointing, but I like getting him back. I like getting him back on the turf, and I also just thought he was a good spot there. Now you're getting him second off the layoff, even though it's only going to be 6 days later, 7 days later. I like, though, that after his prior to the last layoff or prior to the last race, he was working, and he was working pretty solid at Fairgrounds. Coming back here, Ravelli, 33% wins, 67% in the money, 5 to 10 days between starts on the turf. So very good stats. So if he's in, I just think he's pretty tough just from a class standpoint, a trip standpoint, a talent standpoint. But again, obviously everyone will look out for the scratches to see if he stays in or not.
Yeah, it's funny because if he does scratch, like Howard said, that would take even less speed out of the race, which there's not much to begin with. So
yeah, I did not like anything. I had only 1A in this race, and that's usually rare. And I was like, and even my Bs, I was like, I don't really like any of them. Yeah. So if he scratches out, it's going to be, I'm with Patrick. Let's go for some bombs here because this might be a tough one.
Yeah, one of the prices that you got in second, Pete, is the 9 Ambivalent, who looks to maybe benefit a little bit more from some pace, but has some numbers that fit with most of these in here.
Yeah, he's one of those that was looking good, and you can see if you toss the last one, and obviously it hasn't run since September, but if you toss the last one a bit, which was at Kentucky Downs, which again is always funny, and you never know who's going to like it, who's going to not, and it was going 6.5, which doesn't seem to be his thing. Now you're getting him back to 5.5, and if you look just from like a time form buyer standpoint, he was getting a little bit better incrementally. Like he might have popped out probably in that 90-91 range, but he was getting a little bit better at the 5.5. He's run well here. He's 2 for 2 in the top two. Like I said, he likes the distance. I think he needs to improve a little more in this field. But again, it's sort of a wide open field. He's 6, though. So the only problem is a 6-year-old, sometimes are you going to get another jump up, or is he just kind of what he is now? But I think that's baked into the 6-1 price.
I think you gotta give him the effort that he does, like Fairgrounds, and some of these horses have never been over it. So I think you gotta give him that for what it's worth. Funny enough, this horse is owned by Gulliver Racing, who is actually managed and owned by a good friend of my dad's. So
nice.
That's kind of funny. But loves turf sprinting as well. 4 for 5 in first and second as well. So I think especially if one timer scratches, I think he's certainly one to consider. Pat, will go to your second choice with the 4 Panther Island, who honestly I have no idea what to do with, just because it's the trainer switch for Brad Cox, at which he certainly could have run. I think on Thursday the Picks and Ponies guys are covering the Gulfstream card, and that Janice, I believe, is on that in that sequence, which is the 5 furlong turf sprint. So it's a little surprising it didn't end up there, but maybe Cox just doesn't run there. But you've got him in second. What'd you tell us what you liked about the 4?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point there. Gets into the Cox barn, and that race last out at Gulfstream in the beginning of November. The horse, obviously looked like needed one, just didn't do much. Improved late, so I'm hoping, maybe the extra half furlong here, and the progression into the Cox barn with a lot of works in him now. I'm hoping he can take another step forward, because he's not too far off if he can revert back to, the February, March, and April races that he was running at, at this distance. Previous trainer put him in some good spots. So I'm hoping this horse can revert back to that. But we'll have to face a field that's got some proven turf runners in here.
Wait, Pat, you have to think the 5 furlongs at Gulfstream might carry him a little further, or at least closer to the pace in a race that doesn't have a lot, as we've talked about. And then you get Saez, which should help. Saez is known for being aggressive, so maybe he'll put him in a more
forward, show some speed,
and aggressive position, like you said. Yeah.
Actually, real quick, no, I had a couple stats that were a little surprising to me for the 4. Real quick,
Okay.
The Cox Saez duo, who, if you look on the bottom, are basically 30-something%, but only 2 for 25 on the turf together. So that surprised me a bit. That was a lot lower than I expected. And then Cox is only first time after a trainer switch on turf, 5 for 44, but better on the turf overall, but better turf sprinting, where he's 10 out of 13 in the money. Not necessarily on the win end as well, but so a little bit better turf sprinting there. But that Cox Saez 2 for 25, I thought that was a lot lower than I expected, just because they've been so hot together.
Yeah, normally you get you don't get a bad stat from Brad Cox.
No, there's not
like the one that I've got up at the top right, where he's 30% off the trainer switch at Fairgrounds alone.
Yep.
So I love
a lot of his stats are in the 30% range, and you're like, you can't really argue with those too much.
Guys, this might be one of the not as strong opinions, and kind of the wacko horses that I don't really have any idea. But what's been wrong with his last 2 races? I mean, last time, two back in the grade 2 at Woodbine, he was only 1.5 lengths behind Patches, who would probably would he be in the favorite in that Turfway race, Pete, or pretty close to it?
Yeah.
And then last time was in the turf sprint at Churchill lost to Ren Carson, who's come back to be a really nice sprinter. The other 2 horses that have come back, Durante and Bling, all came back and improved their buyers. Bling, I think, ran second in one of those races on Saturday at Turfway. BJ comes in to ride. I think BJ will probably have him close. I know he was 3 lengths back last time, but they were going 21 and 4 and sub 44. So I think that might carry him a little closer to the lead. I don't know. It's a wide open race and there's no speed, so I don't really know where to go. This is where I landed, and I think this horse will be a decent price. So I've got him in the mix.
I had him second, and
Did
then
you?
when I first put it up, and then I switched. So basically, I think the 9, the 1, and the 3 were all sort of on the same level for me, and I was trying to figure out who I wanted to put in the top 3. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that horse. Some nice works coming in, but he seems like just a good workhorse in general, and his best races were going 6, so I guess the 5.5 is a
Yeah.
little iffy for him. But again, that turned out to be a pretty good field last out. So you don't know if it was the 5.5 that he didn't like or just got beat by better horses.
Well, plus the 5.5 at Fairgrounds, it maybe plays a little bit longer just because they have that really long stretch.
It could be,
So,
yes,
which is
yes, yeah.
kind of what I'm thinking. So maybe that won't hurt him in that sense. Pat, you've got the 2 and 3rd, who's 20-1 on the line. But I don't think he'll be anywhere near that with the little amount of speed that's in this race.
Yeah, there's no way this horse will be 20-1. You do have to go back a little bit in the PPs to see, why I like this horse, especially if the 7 scratches. I think Terry Frank brought it up in the chat. If the 7 scratches, this horse could be the lone speed hypothetically in here, and has run at this distance, before and has run pretty well, but the last couple of races just haven't been too well. This horse is still 3 years old, so can improve. And this is kind of my crazy pick in this race that if it's not the 7, I really don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, I literally think it could be anybody.
Hard to go wrong with the speed, right? Sometimes, especially in a 5.5, you take the speed. At least you're going to give you a run, most likely, Patrick. So at least you'll be cheering for a little bit for if you have like a pick 5 or a pick 6 ticket going.
Pete, I think you're probably thinking similarly to me, where I would have liked this horse a little more with one-timer in the race. But now that he scratches, I think it's going to be really tough for him to close from that far back, don't you think?
Yeah, that was my concern. I felt like, and again, we don't know if one-timer is going to scratch or not, but if he does, it really looks like this horse will be sort of pace compromised. And again, from the rail, it'll probably just go straight back. So it looks like a good board horse, but again, I don't know if and then a race that's kind of wide open though, if you can get a horse that you think is going to hit the board and maybe get a few of those prices around them, like if Patrick's horse, if that 2 is able to hold on the lead and at least hit the board, and you can get that horse and maybe this horse underneath, that's not too bad. Brittany Vandenberg, she hasn't been able to break through in sort of stakes races yet. Like that's been her. I actually saw an interview with her. I don't even know why I was watching it. I don't watch a lot of interviews, but I saw her like 2 weeks ago, and she was like, I just really want to get some stakes wins now. But she's 0 for 12 in non-graded stakes, and she's 0 for 10 win and 1 for 10 in the money only, first after the claim on turf in the past couple of years. So looking at those, I was like, he's tough on the win end, but I could see him closing for a piece for sure, unless the pace is so slow that he just gets stuck way back.
Yeah, and I even looked at this horse who's 4-1 on the line, and certainly plenty capable. I mean, he's got 299s, and he's got a 102 buyer in there. But it's hard to ignore the 0 for 11 on turf, and 0 for 3 at the distance, and 0 for 5 at Fairgrounds. So I don't know.
It's too many zeros for my liking.
There's so many different ways you could go in this race. It's going to be quite a doozy, and it'll be interesting to see how some horses take money on the board, especially if one-timer's not in the race. But we'll go on to race 9. I'm going 3-1-7. Pete's going 7-9-1, and Patrick's going 7-4-2. I'll go ahead and get these switched over and bring up the Echo Base. Next race we're going to talk about is race 9, which is a Tenacious Stakes, mile and a 16th for 3-year-olds and up. We got some notable names in here. Morning line favorites, 7 Saudi Crown, coming off of his terrific performance in the Breeders' Cup about 6 weeks ago for Scherer and Cox, and then all the way to the inside, second choice, the 1 Track Phantom for Jose Ortiz and Steve Asmussen. I'll go ahead and get the picks up on the screen. I'm going to 1-7-2. Pete's going 2-1-6, and Patrick's going 7-1-3. Pete, I'll go to you because I went to Pat last time. This is the 2 Kinetic for Godolphin, who could definitely just put another win on the graded stakes belt for the boys in blue.
Yeah, it's really tough picking a Godolphin horse with Brad Cox and Saez. I mean, that hasn't been really a good combination lately, huh? So I thought, so this horse is the one. I'm not a Saudi Crown guy. As you can see, I don't have Saudi Crown in my top three, which is
Love it.
probably stupid, but I've never been a Saudi Crown fan. So I just look at this horse as the one horse in the race. I think a few of the other horses may have some upside, but this one I just don't think we've seen the best of yet. And if you look just from a time form standpoint, a buyer standpoint, definitely some nice incremental increases every single time. So not anything super big, but just building up to it and building up and getting better and better. Especially, I like that the mile and an eighth, he's got a couple of those in there. So distance is no issue for this horse. Now you're getting back to the mile and a 16th. I'd like to see his trip a little bit more to the last one or three back, where he's, a little bit more tactical, sitting right off whoever's going to be, Track Phantom will be close, Saudi Crown will be close. But I just think this horse has some really good upside. Cox Saez, I gave that crappy stat on the turf last time. 48% wins, 78% in the money in stakes dirt routes in the past 5 months. So they've been lighting it up. And I just think this horse has some talent. And if we can get him in the 9-2 is like the third or fourth choice on the board, which probably won't happen. But if we do, shoot, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, no, I don't have any real problem with him. I just think, maybe right now he might be a notch below. But I certainly see your point. He could definitely improve. I mean, he's improved with every start. Pat, you actually don't have him in the top three. You've got 7-1-3. Was there a reason why you kind of threw him out of the top three?
Yeah, I just felt that, and you kind of hit on it, Noah. I just felt like there is a progression that's going on here, but in a race that I think, especially with the way Fairgrounds plays sometimes, I think that, the 7 and the 1 will kind of be more in front here, and we'll just think Saudi Crown, who I'll go into now, will have to, revert back to what he's been in the past. I'm hoping Florent, doesn't do some things that he's done in the past with horses that get on the lead in here, because I think Saudi Crown is a cut up of these horses if he can get to the lead and run in here. But you bring up a good point, Pete, because if Cox obviously has 2 horses in here. If Saudi and Track Phantom do end up duking it out, if Connecticut sit that stalking trip, this should sit right into his wheelhouse.
That's sort of what I was hoping for. And then, like you said, if for some reason Giroux doesn't go, I mean, this horse doesn't have any other method of winning except going on the top. So if for some reason he doesn't, like they did, and I didn't understand the dirt mile trip when we were watching it, but if he doesn't, and again, my hope is even if he does, he gets a little bit pressed, and then Connecticut can sit off, like you said.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Pete, because I was just going to bring up the fact that if you look at all of his races, even the one race where he ran in the Saudi Cup where he got the lead, I mean, he's got 106, 105, 105, didn't get the lead in the Classic last year, then a 105 in Louisiana, came back with a 122 time form in that Saudi Cup where he got the lead. And then the second race overseas in the Godolphin Mile, he didn't get the lead. And then the comeback race got the lead. And then last time threw in the clunker. So I think we're going to know early on if
I was going to say, if he's on the lead, are you just going to toss your hands up in the air and say this is over?
Yeah, you're like, screw it. Yeah, he's a hard horse to leave off. Like if you're doing a horizontal ticket, he's a tough one to leave off because anytime you could control the pace like that, and that's a strength. It's so hard to leave those horses off. But I guess we'll talk about Track Phantom when you guys will talk about that, especially Noah. You have him on top. We'll talk about that to see how he would play if Saudi Crown does go, and what will Track Phantom do.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of Track Phantom. I know he was pretty good last year as a 3-year-old. His last race looked like a complete prep, and it looked like they're maybe trying to get him to try to learn to sit off. He was just off the lead last time. The horse that finished third, Gulfstream Way, kind of took him around for a while, sat him off, and then kind of duked it out with him in the stretch. But it was kind of the good case of won the battle but lost the war, where those two were kind of going at it in the stretch, and then Horseman just picked it up late. So I thought it was a really good comeback race. The mile on the 16th, I don't think is going to be any problem, and I think he's going to make the 7 work a little bit harder to maybe get the lead, but I think ultimately he'll probably be sitting second. I don't know. I think there's some progression to see here. I think he's sitting on a big race. He loves Fairgrounds. 3 for 3 to mile on the 16th. Jose's been on fire. I think there's a lot of things to like here with the one Track Phantom.
Yeah, no, I agree. Patrick, you have him in second. You basically on the same track as Noah there.
Yeah, for sure. I was close to putting Track Phantom on top, just knowing how much he likes Fairgrounds. And the only thing that didn't was the outside draw for Saudi Crown. I do think that puts Track Phantom in a bit of a predicament early on. But if he can sit off, like Noah said, then this could be a duel and could set up maybe for Pete's number 2 horse, Kinetic.
Well, Pat, you've got the 3 and third. How do you see him sitting in a scenario like that?
Yeah, and who I hope is in that spot that Kinetic's going to be in. Listen, Warrior Johnny, Phil Bauer, he's really good at just picking his spots and stuff like that. And, he goes up to Saratoga with a string of horses and had a really nice win in that allowance optional claimer on the July 11th. July 11th. That was a really impressive win. I went back and watched that and then just kind of watched his progression through, believing he could go into the Whitney and stuff like that. Just was in some tough spots. Not sure what the turf idea was there, but gets back on track at Parks. And now I think is going to sit a stalking trip in here and hopefully can pick up some pieces in a race that's full of big names.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that Saratoga race because it's one of those races that we like to joke about. It's one of those grade 4s where that optional claiming 80 was just loaded. I mean, there were so many stakes horses in that race, and he ran huge that day. And ever since then, it just looked like Bauer was just trying to get him back to that. And maybe the turkey trial last time at Parks kind of got him back to that level. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think the 1, 2, and 7 are all going to take probably a decent amount of money. So Warrior Johnny's going to be at least 6 to 1 on the board.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess that's all we got to say about race 9. I'm going 1-7-2. Pete's going 2-1-6, and Patrick's going 7-1-3. We'll move on to the 4th race of the 5 races that we're going to be talking about, which is race 10. I'll get that up on the screen now. Race 10 is the Buddy Diliberto Memorial. Obviously, another $100,000 stakes race, mile and a 16th on the turf this time. We got a field of 7. This is for older males. Morning line favorite is the 2 Gigante, the Virginia bred for Jose Ortiz and Steve Asmussen. And the second choice is the 3 Swift Scherer for Saez and Maker. I'll go ahead and get the picks up on the bottom of the screen. We're all pretty similar in this race. I'm going 2-3-1. Pete's going 2-3-6, and Patrick's going 3-2-5. Pat, I'll throw it to you with the 3 Swift Scherer, who looks to just kind of send from there and see how long it can hold on.
Yeah, I think Swift Scherer's last 2 races, whether that's on the lead or just sitting right off, have been very good. I think that his race at Aqueduct last out was just impressive because he kind of just held everybody off and kind of won with ease in there. And faced Magical Ways, who actually came back and ran a solid second at Aqueduct, going back onto the dirt. And if nobody's going to go with Swift Scherer in here, this horse should just get confident on the lead with Louis in hand, who is always pretty good with being on the lead with horses and stuff like that. So I was going to think about going back to the 4 Evan Harlan, who's literally crushed me in every race that horse is running, but I didn't even put that horse on the board in this spot. But I do think the 2, could be tough. And I was just trying to, maybe beat the favorite. It's going to be interesting to see how the odds, the board shakes out in here.
Yeah, I should mention that the rails are all the way down, I believe, at Fairgrounds on Saturday. So should, in theory, help him. He has been a part of 2 hot paces in the 2 turf races, like you said, Pat. So should have it, pretty much his own way up there. Just a matter of kind of who brings their A game. And
you like to see too, I like when a horse changes something and sort of moves forward, and this horse not necessarily moves forward from like a figure standpoint, but just is successful since the move to the turf, even though it was at a little bit lower company. It's funny you're clicking on Maker there. I don't know. Do you have something?
Yeah, there was a stat. I
have one. I have a couple. Yeah, I'll see if you were going to look at that one.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't get that to come up, but I believe it was it? I know it was first off the claim. I don't know if it was at Fairgrounds or if it was in greatest.
I have Maker 0 for 19 first after the claim at Fairground, incling 0 for 12 on the turf, which is funny though. And I put this in my notes. So last week when we did the Turfway, I had some similarly horrible statistics for Meagher at Turfway.
Yeah.
And he won at least two, if I remember, or at least he won at least one, maybe a couple of them. So he bucked multiple trends. So I put that in my notes, like, yeah, this is a crappy trend, but he bucked some trends at Turfway last week. Can he do the same here again? But yeah, for that first after the claim at Fairground, I didn't like the 0 for 19.
I know. Yeah, I did have that. I don't know why maybe I just didn't write that down, but that was like the one thing that just swayed me from not putting the 3 and putting the 2 instead. But Pete, you do have the 2 Gigante. This is a horse. I had trouble picking him on top because he has such a history of running big at big prices. So it's a little weird. Kind of, you're playing mind games when you see him at 9 to 5 on the line.
Yeah, you hate to play a horse that you're just used to using as a price horse. So he's one of those, he's probably going to hit the board at a decent price. And that's how you think of this horse. But that's usually against better competition. And this field it's so-so. It didn't come up all that great. So that's why eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just kind of landing on him. I hate to be a broken record, but he gets to switch to Ortiz again, who, the way we've been talking, either Ortiz is going to have a huge day or he's going to lower that win percentage when he loses a bunch of these. But the only thing I did hope for him is, you see some of his more successful races, he's a little closer. So can Ortiz get him a little bit more in the mix? Again, we figured that, like Pat talked about, the 3 is sort of the lone speed. So will it just be sort of a merry-go-round and Gigante will be stuck a little too far back, or can he be close and then not let Scherer get away too far? I guess that's probably the biggest question if you're playing a 9 to 5 shot who's not used to being this low.
We've got Jim with another one of his comical statements. He says, when the 2 wins, you usually get a Gigante win price payout. Yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, for all the reasons that you said, Pete, he likes here at Fairgrounds. He's got 6 wins and 17 starts. So, he always kind of brings his race to the table, regardless of who he faces, which is why he's delivered at big prices at times in the past. So that's why I've got him on top.
I like him on the firm too. He hasn't been getting complete firm turf, but if you look, he's had some pretty decent success when he's been on a firm course. So I assume, I didn't look at the weather actually, but I assume if the weather's good and we can get some firm turf, then I kind of like him even a little bit more.
That's a good question. I have not looked at the.
It's usually Howard's job. He's our local. Hey, Howard in the chat, get on that, man. Look at the weather for us. We don't like to do that stuff.
Yeah, Pat. Anything you got to add with the 2, and then you can go ahead and talk about the 5, who we actually didn't mention, but is cross-entered in one of the races we talked about earlier.
Yeah, you guys hit everything on the 2. With the 5, I just this horse has run pretty well at Fairgrounds. In years past, and at this distance, get this horse back, to this distance, because has run well doing it. And I just, underneath in a 12 to 1 morning line, Greg Foley's been great, over the years past, especially at Fairgrounds. So I'm going to try to get this horse underneath in tries and exactas.
He had some nice works coming in too, Pat. He had a couple nice works, so he seems sharp. It's just those last few have just been stinky, and they were a little hard to overlook for me.
Yeah, no, you make a good point.
Seems like we're mainly 2-3, and then just trying to find maybe a price to get in third. Pete, you got the 6, who's a bit of an oldie here, an 8-year-old coming from Hawthorne for Brian Hernandez and Chris Block.
Yeah, that's a tough one because you get the move from Hawthorne, so you never know how that's going to translate. It was more just a horse that's, a nice 8-year-old. I like the old guys. Hey, I'm an old guy. I like to see them succeed once in a while. That was one where he's just in really good form right now. So if you're looking, and again, he's not a price. When I handicapped it, I didn't have the morning line, so I wasn't sure what they were going to do with him. It's a little lower than I expected, but again, he just comes from off the pace. There's not going to be a lot of pace. That's the issue. So I didn't know about on the win end, and maybe because there's a talent gap. But I could see him closing for a piece for sure, especially if those odds float up for some reason.
Yeah. I didn't know what to do with him because I came in with the mindset that I was trying to get a little bit of a price in third. I don't know if these 3 work starting on December 1st, and then the 8th and the 15th. They are a little, slower than maybe we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that Father Time is catching up with him, but maybe just not as good as I would have liked. And there's not a ton of speed in the race.
Hey, us old guys, we can't. We have to save it for the show, because if you'd work out too much, then you're just exhausted.
Yeah.
We got to save it for when the lights are on, not use it all up in the morning. Us old people.
Yeah, exactly. I've got the 1 and 3rd. I'd rather be blessed for Ben Curtis and Chris Hartman. This horse is, he's not really all that, but he's more of a plotter. He just kind of puts himself in a good position and just kind of runs around the track. So wouldn't surprise me if he's been up at 3rd. He's been up on the lead in some races and close in others. So I think he's just from the rail. He's going to find himself in a good spot.
He set those quick fractions at the 1.5 miles, which I was like, if he did that at 1.5 miles, will he do that here again? I thought that was odd, right? Like, that's the race where you decide to set sort of the quicker fractions. That seemed odd to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't place any kind of win bet or anything on him, but I just think it's mostly 2-3, and so do you guys. But we'll move on to the finale of the races we're talking about. I'm going 2-3-1. Pete's going 2-3-6, and Patrick's going 3-2-5. We'll move on to our finale. I'll go ahead and get the Equibase up on here. Race 11 is the Untappable Stakes. It's 1.70 miles for 2-year-old fillies. Got a nice field of 8 in this race. Morning line favorite is the 4 Golden Gamble for Brian Hernandez and Kenny McPeek. Newly friend of the podcast, Kenny McPeek. Second choice is the 6 Amarth for Luis Saez and Keneally. Go ahead and get the picks up on the screen. I'm going 6-3-2. Pete's going 4-5-3, and Patrick's going 4-3-5. I believe I went to you last time, Pat, so I'll throw it to Pete with the 4 Golden Gamble, coming off of a really impressive win last time.
Well, it looks like you're off the next Kenny McPeek podcast, so I'm not even putting him in the top 3.
I am.
We'll let him know that you're out. So if we ever, but yeah, this was a tough race for me. I thought there was I could have gone a few different ways here. In all honesty, I kind of liked. So I had the note in there about the debut for Golden Gamble, where I thought was just sort of wide most of the way, and then came on late, and then in the second start, just ran much better, got a better trip, but then it really exploded and just kind of blew the field away. And I just like that move forward. I like that you debuted the horse routing and then, stayed at 1.16 miles. So I like that shows that, hey, I think this is going to be a router. Let's not fool around with the 6 furlongs. Let's sort of do that. And I think if we can get the same trip as last time, sort of sitting mid-pack like that. And McPeek had a nice 24% wins with maiden winners last out, moving into non-graded stakes. So that's something he's accustomed to doing. I mean, it is a $200,000 purchase off a $25,000 stud fee. So there's a little bit of, there was a little bit of likeness going into this horse at sale. So it just looks like one that if they can improve off that last one, I think there's a pretty good, I think, result. You can look at this horse as a move forward kind of horse because of that. And if we can get another step up, I think could always outclass this field. I guess that's why she's the favorite, though. So again, I'm not breaking ground here.
Pat, I guess I probably should have gone with you to talk about her first, just because I know you've got her later. But anything to add here with the 4 Golden Gamble?
Yeah, no, I did hear a little something during the summer. This horse was working, in Saratoga all summer long, was working really well. Just never really got to the races at Saratoga over the summer, and then has progressed into something. You just wonder if this could be, the next powerhouse filly in the McPeek barn. He seems to be rattling, these fillies off each year. And I feel like this horse can take another step in the right direction, to get to that first, Friday in May?
Yeah, it's the day before.
We have the drones, Uncle. We have the drones. Don't you worry about it.
It could definitely be the brain fog from final exams, because I have been absolutely swamped with that. So could be the case, but I'll give you my reasons why I don't have her in the mix. Number one, the last race was impressive and all, but this field was just awful. Second place finisher was Girl Math, who I can't bring up the PPs right now, but it's a horse for Rudy Brissett, who was just complete second-itis, has been very disappointing as a favorite at least twice, maybe 3 times. Serafia, it's not going to let me bring up. Serafia is, I believe, $1 million purchase for Asmussen, who just has been nothing but disappointing. And then Calamity was a first-timer for Cox, who just was meh, wasn't taking any money on the board. So I don't know what to make of that race. And DRF is shutting down on me. Maybe that means I need to throw. Maybe Kenny McPeak's doing something.
Kenny's on you, man. He's jinxing you.
Yeah, I need to get this back up on the screen.
The only one thing I'll say while you try and do that is I agree with you that the field came up pretty crappy, or has come back pretty crappy. But I think the way I always talk about it is you can't help who you run against, but if you can beat them up the way you're supposed to, then I take that into a little bit more consideration. But I agree with you. That field is mostly junk behind her, but at least she beat them like they were junk, and she didn't struggle to. And she was professional enough where I think that at least was. I think that was a step in the right direction for me, because the first race I thought with the wide trip, I wasn't sure if she got to show her stuff and had Leparoux, who I'm not sure. I like the move to Hernandez. So I think there's a lot to go on there, but yeah, why not? I think this is a tough field, so I don't think it's a shock if this horse ran out by any stretch.
Yeah, I don't think she's head and shoulders about this field at all.
No.
Another reason why I didn't love her was you can see the stat here. McPeak won for 36 with 2-year-olds at Fairgrounds the last 5 years. So not really his thing. And you see he hasn't really been doing well there as of recent. He's 0 for 13. He's got 5 in the money, so they're running all right. But, you would think he'd maybe get one in the winner's circle by now.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I don't know what to do with that last work. I mean, 5 furlongs and 105-1. Do you really have an idea why it was that slow? I don't know. I have weird vibes going into the race.
Yeah, no, Patrick, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? That's just, sometimes I just look at that and go, they must not have wanted much, because that's really slow. You don't usually see a 105.
Yeah, I don't know if Kenny McPeak does that, with his horses in their last work, kind of eases them up a little bit, but you do hit on the point that is very slow.
Well, it's weird because, maybe she just works a little slow in the mornings, but you see when she was at Keeneland in the mornings before her debut, she was going 48-4, 48-3, and then just a couple of maintenances at Churchill to get her ready for the second start, and then throws that bomb in the mix. I don't know what to do. I might be just picking straws at this point, but there's other horses I like that I know I know they're going to be better prices, and I don't know if Golden Gamble's really all that good. So I've got her out of the mix. I'll use her defensively, but I have my reasons.
Let's hit your horse. Yeah, let's hit your horse first. Let's hear your horse. Yeah.
Let's go with the 6 of March, 7-2. Size and Keneally is coming out of the race where she beat Stable Currency. I thought that race was better visually than it was on paper. I know we can't see that race and I can't show it live, but it was a lot of stopping and starting, which is not really what you want to see a lot with these 2-year-old fillies. She was kind of in tight down in the inside. She was close early, then kind of got shuffled back to 5th. And then came on with a nice run late and held off another horse, Bless the Broken, who was coming to her outside. So I think there's some improvement that we can see here. The back-to-back buyer tops, I think is a positive thing. You should see a move forward, increasing with every start, and according to time form, and increasing buyer with or time form with distance. So I just thought she was interesting. I think she's going to sit a really good trip. And I've got her in the mix, who you guys actually don't have anywhere. So anything to poo-poo on my horse?
I thought the last 2 fields were pretty bad, but again, that's not always you run whoever's there, but I didn't love the 2 fields. I had Keneally, small sample size, 0 for 8 with 2-year-old non-graded stakes races. Again, that's not a big enough sample size to really sway you, but just something to mention. I don't know. I was looking at the horse. I thought it was probably the next one. I think it was my fourth horse for me, but there was just enough. And I didn't like the field, and I just liked some of the other ones in terms of what they'd done already, where we've seen a little bit more improvement with them from 1 to 2. Whereas this one, from the 2nd to the 3rd, from a figure standpoint, at least, you didn't see sort of that jump, a little bit of a jump. So that scared me a little bit. That was probably the only reason.
Yeah, Pete, you've got the 5 California Sunset in second, who actually finished in front of Golden Gamble last time, and leave Brad Cox off your tickets at will.
Yeah, that's the tough part is you leave him off, and then you might be in trouble. I thought the last one, I sort of liked the last one. Again, it's one of those wedding funeral type things. Was 14-1, got the win. Now you're getting the horse bet down. Was the last time when you should have got her, but it's under Cox's hand, so it's not like this was some low percentage trainer who this horse jumped up and won at a high price. I think that first race was probably maybe just a learning experience. You don't really know. It was just pretty crappy. Didn't necessarily do all that much. Wound up finishing fourth, but was pretty bad most of the way. So I don't know if that was just a clunker. And then the second race was more what this horse is. I guess we'll see here. I could see her bombing out completely and just being too far back and, being a non-threatening fourth, or I can see her maybe moving forward because of Cox and actually being decent here. It's a little bit of a crapshoot on this one for me.
Pat, she's by Quality Road out of a Malibu Moon mare, so it seems like she should have no problem with the distance, and it looks like she should be able to run all day long.
Yeah, Cox could be sweeping this 2-year-old day of races, leading to into next year. He's just loaded with 2-year-olds. Whether that's the fillies or the boys in this spot, and I do think this horse could take another step forward, getting that extra distance. But that will also lead into my 3. Her laugh, who I think she should appreciate more distance here too. I really liked the way she did it as breaking her maiden back in the middle of November. You look at who she faced in that spot. One horse did come back to win, and I can't see actually what that horse did.
Yeah, I got it right for you. It was the 5th place finisher Moto who came back and won on the slop at Oaklawn last time.
Yeah, so that horse came back to win a little bit, and others haven't really run since. But I think her laugh could take another step forward for Whip Beckman, who, if I don't recall, was had a pretty big name horse. I'm blanking on the name on the trail. This past season.
Is that Honor Marie?
Yes, correct. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I lost a lot of money betting on him, Marie. So let's see if we can get one of his. That was one of my clunkers most of the way through.
This is. I'm interested because she's entered in the one of the races that the B&B boys are going to talk about tomorrow night. One of the other races, I believe that's a sprint, and this is a mile 70. So it'll be interesting to see where Beckman puts her. I do think she's interesting in this spot. I haven't looked at the race before, but. I've got her in second, and we've all got her in the mix. So everyone.
I thought she might have been more suited for the sprint. That's why I was like, I wonder if that's where he'll put her. But I think I agree with you where that choice maybe drives whether. Well, that's a toss now. Howard said her laugh would be my top pick. Bred for longer on the dam side. Very good time. Interesting at 9-2. So you could toss her laugh pretty much now. So for everyone listening there. No, I'm curious to see what he chooses, because you figure that would be a good barometer for what he thinks is going to be her best. You wonder if do you choose because it's best, you think that's what the horse is best at doing, or do you choose because hey, we want to get this horse routing so we could point her, see if she's pointable to the Oaks at some point. So you always have that weird balance there.
Yeah, no, Howard says if she goes here, then maybe suggest that Beckman thinks that she can go long. So
stop regurgitating my comments, Howard. That's exactly what I just said.
Something to pay attention there. Last thing I will add is Beckman's, he's okay at Fairgrounds, 3 for 20. But you can see 2 of them are within the last week, and he's also got a second in there. So, oh God, what have we done?
Yeah, I'm glad too. I'm going to make a permanent move, man. Can we make some trades, man? I like the West Coast better, anyways. Can we make some? Yeah. I like the warm weather anyway.
Yeah, it's a West Coast show, but we're not even covering the West Coast this week because they don't have.
That's all right. That's all right.
Racing, so
it's west of something. That's all we matter about. It's west of some states. That's all we care about.
Yeah, I've got the 2 Primavera in third. This is a little bit of a wacko where I think she's going to get a little ignored on the board. I liked her last race quite a bit. I know she was 27-1, and I don't know how great that field was, but I thought it was a pretty good race from her effort. It's Loveberry and Brinkman, so they're kind of Louisiana-based connections. When you got other horses shipping in, the Asmussens and the Cox and yada yada yada, these horses kind of get lost in the board. So I think she's one that can certainly come in the mix. So I've got her in third. I think it's oh God, what is going on in the chat right now? But I've got her in third. I
like that. I like the stretch out when she improved stretching out. So that's sometimes a good sign. So if the stretch out maybe was the thing that moved her forward, that could be a good thing.
Oh, what did I just do? Yeah, I think it's a good point. We'll go ahead and move on to best bets, but I'm going 6-3-2. Pete's going 4-5-3, and Patrick's going 4-3-5. I'll go ahead and get the best bets on the screen right now. Pete, we'll start with you. You got 2 win bets: a win bet in race 7 on the 5 Admiral Dennis, and then a win bet in race 9 on the Godolphin Runner Kinetic.
Yeah, nothing too complicated there. Those were the two. I like Kinetic. I like the decent price. Admiral Dennis, apologies, it's the chalk, but I sent that over pre morning line, so I figured he'd be favored. But if you can, I would even take him if you can get him 9-5, even maybe 8-5. I would still probably put a win bet on that horse.
Yeah, no, I love it. We'll go to you, Pat. You've got race 8 at Tri-Key with the 2 Bear River, who looks to be lone speed in that turf sprint. And then, like I hinted, a win bet on the 4 Golden Gamble in race 11.
Yeah, Bear River, Noah, you hit on how we're not going to get 20-1. I'm hoping probably half of that, 10-1, 12-1 area, and that horse can get to the lead and hopefully hold on for a piece in there. And then in race 11, Golden Gamble, yeah, I think this she can be a really good one. And I know we can hit on that field that she faced last time, but she won impressively. In my eyes, so I'm hoping I can get somewhat decent odds on her. But 5-2 morning line, I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit lower than that. But should be a fun card.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, and I should probably mention before the show's over, the 5 races that we did cover are actually not the late pick 5. They do have a 12th race, which is a maiden race, but for crossover week's sake, we've got these 5 races. So that's what we covered, and we're giving best bets. So. I'll go ahead and give mine. Pete, I kind of hinted at this earlier, but I'm going to play Dutch Exactas in race 7 with the 1 Built and the 5 Admiral Dennis, just because I think those 2 are the best 2 in the race, and I think the 3 will probably take money. So I think you can maybe get some value in that Exacta. And then moving forward to race 8, I've got a win bet on the 3 to Bob. I just have so many question marks about a lot of those runners, even one timer, if he runs off of that short layoff. And then you got the 6 that's 0 for 11 on turf, and the 1 that needs a bunch of pace to run into. So a lot of question marks about a lot of horses in there. So those are my best bets as I throw up the final ticker. Final thoughts for the 5 races that we covered at Fairgrounds. And it's been a good time having you guys on the show.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. Fairgrounds, this card on Saturday is very good. I mean, I know we're not covering the last race, but that maiden race is loaded too with some, pretty hefty purchases. So it should be a fun card. I know the guys tomorrow night will be covering the earlier part of it. And it was great to be on. I think this crossover idea is an awesome idea. I'm not sure who came up with it. We won't give anybody credit where credit's, due or not due. But but yeah, it was a fun time. And I think this should be a fun Saturday and fun weekend with a ton of different sports and football on.
Yeah, it was good. We gave you the first 5. You just have to pick the last one to hit the pick 6. So right. So now when you cash that ticket, just go all in the last one. Use our picks in the first 5, and you're all set.
Yeah, and the B&B boys are covering, or actually it's Kyle and Ryan covering the early, but you don't need to pay attention to that. You just have to race the 7-11.
Yeah, these are the real. There are what 2? There's 2 stakes in there.
3, I believe.
Oh wait, you know what? They're not. The 6th is nobody's covering. That's the 6th and the 12th nobody's hitting, but the 6th is a stake as well. But it's a fun card, man. Yeah, it's definitely a good card for sure.
Yeah, great card at Fairgrounds on Saturday, and then Saturday Gulfstream's got the great card as well that Picks and Ponies will be covering. Picks and Ponies Peateless.
So I assume the viewership will be super low on Thursday.
Yeah, it should be, right?
For that.
Can you imagine that? Paul and Charlie going at it?
Oh, boy. Paul, I can tell you that show's going to probably be about 2.5 hours long. So buckle up if you're in the seat. Now that should be an awesome one, and they got Brian Nadeau from Gulfstream coming on, so that should be an awesome show. So yeah, crossover week is fun. It's always good me, Noah, and Patrick don't get to do shows together much, so it's fun to mix it up a little bit. And again, I don't remember if we have. I guess we have a show, I think, on Monday, so I'll see some people and get to say some happy holiday stuff before them.
Yeah, no, it's been a great time doing the show with you guys, and make sure you check out our shows on a Wednesday and Thursday. But that's going to wrap it up for us. For my special guests, special co-hosts on tonight's show, Pete Visco and Patrick Kuenzel. This has been your host, Noah Meagher, episode 10 of Pacific Horseplayers, covering Fairgrounds and Gunrunner Stakes. And as we like to do here on PHP out.